All right, so thank you everyone for joining us for the Upper Darby Township Council meeting, December 9th, 2020, 7 p.m. At this point in time, can everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America,
for which
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
liberty for all.
we can also remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of those that have lost. And I understand that a Marple Newtown officer just recently passed away. You may be seated. And I'd like to ask Councilwoman Billups to do the roll call.
Yes, Council President Wentz. Councilman Tunis.
Councilwoman, nice to see you.
Here.
Nice to see you too.
Good to see you guys. Please mute your microphones at this point in time. Except for council members, Ms. Billups is going to do roll call. Go ahead, Ms. Billups.
Okay. Councilman Tunis said that he was here. Councilwoman Billups is here. Councilman Silva.
Here.
Councilwoman Blackwell. Present. Councilman Gwynn.
Present.
Councilman Burke, I'm sorry.
Present.
Councilman Siddiq.
Present.
Thank you. Councilwoman Faralia.
Here.
Councilman Barnett.
Here.
Councilman Wagner.
Here.
And Council President Wentz.
Here. Thank you.
All present and accounted for.
Great. At this point in time, we have rules of decorum rules for meeting decorum. Upper Darby Township Council and residents will maintain professional respect for each other. Council encourages free speech. However, civility is required, which would prohibit threats, profanity, scandalous, impertinent, and redundant comment, or comment of the discernible purpose of which is to disrupt or prevent the conduct of the business of the meeting. Great. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone, all of our presenters that have hopped on board from Drexeline, the Drexeline project. At this point in time, it is your window for your second presentation to give us any information that you didn't have the last time around, anything you wanted to clarify with, or just, it's your second opportunity to give council and our residents more information. So thank you all for joining us. Please take it away.
I think that's my cue. I don't, Mark, are you on?
I am.
Did you want to say anything before I got started?
Nope, I don't think so. I think we'll just have you give the update, and then if there's any questions that are legal, I can handle it.
Okay. So thank you, Mayor Keffer and council for having us again, and for all of those who've reached out to talk to us since our last presentation. I'm going to share the screen if that's okay. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
We're not, for purposes of time, we don't plan on going back through the entire presentation we presented at the last time we were in front of you all, unless there's a direction to do otherwise. What we just figured that we would do is just, for those who missed the initial presentation, I'll just give a brief description about us as the developer, and then one of our team members will take over and just describe the differences in the plans, and it should just be a few minutes of presentation, if that's okay, Council President Wentz.
Yes, that's great. It's an update. We are voting on your resolution today, as well as to give any additional information that you didn't have prior that you wanted to share with us.
Great. So just as a brief background, this is a development by MCB Real Estate and Hampshire companies. We went into our development experience, which is pretty significant, and that, wanted to make sure the community knows that from a development perspective, both MCV and Hampshire are committed to delivering first-class projects, and we're very excited about the opportunity to finally push this project forward after much consternation and hand-wringing. We're really excited about what we're talking to you guys about today. What we've been talking to you guys about for some time. So with that, brief introduction. Drew, I'm going to hand it to you, and please chime in and just give a brief description of the change in plan that we were looking for approval for.
Thanks, David, and thank you to the council and all in attendance tonight. We appreciate the opportunity just to walk through this briefly with you. David, if you could go to slide 15, I think that probably the best and easiest thing to do, or I'm sorry, maybe it's 16. The easiest thing to do is kind of walk through the differences between the prior plan that was submitted last year and then this updated plan that we've have in front of you this evening. And I'm just going to hit on the highlights of the differences in the plan that are sort of both enumerated here, as well as some additional things that aren't on here. So essentially, this is the plan on the left was the plan that was approved through zoning and submitted to the township. The plan on the right, which has the 4 numbers on it, is the plan with the modifications that we've made since both with the township and also addressing, really, frankly, some of the repercussions of the pandemic and its impact on certain uses that were previously included in the plan. Specifically, the plan to your left at one time had an office building on it. That office building has been eliminated, given again, that was what we would call a COVID-related issue, as office has become highly volatile and suspect in terms of its future, and frankly, as everyone evaluates what their space needs are going to be and how people are going to come back to work, how often, and how often, and who will be telecommuting as well as being in the office. In terms of the actual physical changes to the plan, what we tried to do again was address some of the concerns that came out of the township engineer's letter relative to adjacencies to the creek, green space, the trail, and other factors in the plan. And so specifically, what this plan does is widen the bike, or I should say the walking trail that was originally incorporated in the plan, which started at the west end of the plan closest to Township Line Road, where we have the community garden in that lower corner. And picking up from the community garden and moving east through the plan, we've been able to widen that trail area from 5 to 8 feet in most cases. The second thing we were able to do was eliminate, if you look at the plan to the left, eliminate plenty of that parking that was down along the creek, creating a bigger and greener buffer area between the project and the creek. And so that particular modification eliminated a good deal of parking, but also allowed us to create that green space. Next thing we did was we shifted and eliminated the building on the left and moved that whole structure north towards State Road, which allowed us to widen the area near nearest the SEPTA area. So we could create convenient parking both for SEPTA and create a better spacing and better circulation around the plant for vehicles. And then obviously the other change, which is in front of you this evening, is the addition of 48 units to the up to 190 units in the residential, which had previously been approved for 142 units. Other things that came out of this, these changes were increased and better pedestrian connectivity. So what we ended up doing was when we had the chance to modify the east edge of the plan nearest the SEPTA line next to the residential building, we were able to create much more direct and better pedestrian connections. And David, that's actually best seen in slide 15, just previously. So you can see the pedestrian connectivity coming from State Road, also coming from the apartments to the east of us through our center, and with very direct and strong sidewalk connections to the SEPTA line, and just as important, if not more importantly, over to the creek and the trail serving the creek, getting pedestrians in and out of the center and to the creek and to the trail and to SEPTA as safely as possible. The other kind of output edges of these changes were that we were able to decrease the amount of impervious. So we actually have gone from originally 93% impervious down to 75% and now down to 73% impervious. So we've, in each iteration of the plan, been able to bring more green space to the plan. So that's also one of the changes that came out of the last modification of the plan. So those are the major changes. I know we discussed these in great detail at the last meeting, but we just wanted to review with you some of those so they were highlighted during this meeting. I think, David, the other thing, and I'll sort of want to address this in concert with Mark D'Amico. One of the some of the items that came out of the last meeting had to do with where we were, how we were advancing the plan through the process. So we one of the questions raised were, would we go back through zoning? And yes, we did say, and we've agreed that we would go back through zoning relative to the residential. So that zoning meeting has been scheduled for the 22nd of December, and we plan on being in front of the zoning board at that time. We've also, you have in front of you the resolution, which I think has been now updated and modified to reflect the changes to the plan, as well as some of the other items that came out of the last couple of meetings in the last zoning, or the last engineer's letter we received from the town. And then there were a couple of other questions that came out of the last meeting that we wanted to address, I think, and address whatever other questions you all might have of us this evening. And then lastly, Michael, is Michael attending, the township engineer?
Yeah, he's here.
I'm here, yes.
Michael, how are you?
Good.
I know we still need to go back through the Delaware county's planning, which we're doing, and that with this plan, which was one of the requests made last in your letter, and so that's advancing forward. We are still awaiting the letter, I think, but from you regarding this plan. But I just wanted to make sure that you were here tonight and also up to speed. And I think you had spoken with our engineers from Bowler, Roberto, and John.
Yeah, we've been in constant coordination with Roberto, and we have reviewed the Bowler plan. We did submit a full engineering letter addressing any landscape lighting or stormwater management concerns. We also have a traffic engineer review that was completed. We understand you have an HOP permit, but we did forward the plans off to the traffic engineer so you can address any final comments that they may have. As far as the comments that we've submitted previously, I don't think there's anything in the letter that the engineers cannot address or already have addressed. And as far as the Delaware County Planning Commission, the plans will, you received a revise and resubmit request, and I think you're doing that. And that is satisfactory to me. And I think that the changes that you made are going to make a big benefit to their review.
Great. I just want to make sure the council was aware that we were, still going through that process.
Great, thank you.
And with that, I don't, with that, we'll be respectful of the time and the fact that this has been through and in front of you all several times in the last 30 or 45 days. So we just really wanted to open up to whatever questions you might have.
Okay, so one of the things that you were going to bring to us this evening was what the breakdown of apartments of that 196 apartments. You did not know at the last time we met whether they were, how many studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. That's a concern of our residents. I was hoping you had the breakdown for this evening.
We actually recommissioned an updated segmentation study, which is not complete tonight, but will be complete and in front of and presented when we're in front of the zoning hearing board on the 22nd. So it's at this point, the current mix of units would still be as stated in the previously approved zoning application. And we will be presenting that segmentation study on the 22nd. It's just not complete yet, but it has been commissioned.
So, but previously, I believe it was studios, 1 bedroom, and a few 2 bedrooms.
That's correct.
So you're not looking to add 3 bedrooms?
At this point, that is not the plan. We're looking to stay consistent with the prior disbursement, but we don't have the updated study yet.
Okay. And then also last time we met, you didn't have solid information on what the ShopRite was going to look like. I was wondering if there were any updates on that building space, if they were going to have any community space or anything in that building as they did originally in the plans.
Yeah, Pat has initiated architecture now and design. So he will be addressing that. We don't have any information on that tonight, but he is in the planning process on the 72,000 square foot store as we speak. So I can't address it directly because the space plan has not been completed there, but he will be back and addressing that directly in the future.
Okay, so that'll be something for us to look forward to in the final part of the equation. Since we're still in.
Yes.
Prelim, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So are there other council members that have any questions at this time?
Yes, Laura.
If so, go ahead, Bob. Councilman Gwynn.
I did too.
Okay.
I had one follow-up question that I think we'd asked before, but you had to look at it. Will there be any charging stations for electric cars in your layout for parking areas?
We are going to look at that, and my anticipation is that we will end up with charging stations here. It's becoming fairly routine, and we think it's going to be absolutely of demand here.
Thank you.
Great. Councilwoman Faralia, go ahead.
Yes, I don't know if you answered this before or not, but the apartments that are going there, they're different from the apartments that are already there, right?
Yes.
Yes. And are these for senior citizen, or are they low income, or are they just regular apartments?
These would be market rate apartments, really not geared to any age because they're not age restricted.
Okay, but they'll be regular market value.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there other council members that have a question? Please speak up. I can't see you at this time.
Tom Wagner, I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Tom. And I heard John, so.
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm not the best at following maps, so maybe you can answer this for me. Right now, the way Drexeline is currently laid out, there is access from Woodland Avenue, which is a one-way street that essentially empties into what I would call the back of the parking lot, and then you can drive through the parking lot and out onto State Road. If that access doesn't continue, the problem is that Woodland Avenue is one way going in that direction toward Drexeline. Will that access continue?
Yeah, that's the councilperson Benet was also very concerned about that. Yes, that access continues in the new plan. It is modified to, as opposed to just a complete open area, a single inlet lane to calm traffic, because that tends to be a speed zone now.
Would you mind tracing, if you can, where a person would go then to drive from there out onto State Road?
Yeah, sure. They would come through there, make a right, and run along parallel to the property edge next to the residential, between the residential buildings, our proposed and the existing to the east. And there's a connection right out to the to State Road, to that entry onto State Road, the furthest east entry on our plan.
Okay, thank you for that. Could you update us as well, if there is any update regarding Anthony's Restaurant? There was some talk at the last meeting about working with the owner of Anthony's to relocate it somewhere else within the shopping center. Has anything happened on that?
Dan, do you want to address that? You've had the most recent conversations.
We are working with Anthony's to find out.
Dan, we can't hear you.
Dan, we can't hear you.
That's
Sorry. We're
Sorry.
working with Anthony's to determine what's the best course of action for him. At this time, we haven't finalized anything, but we are in discussions with him to determine if, what works best for him.
Well, that's pretty much what we heard last time, that we're working on it. What I'm asking about respectfully is whether there has been any progress on that. Are we closer to a solution there, or a decision one way or the other? Or would you say it's not any closer than the last meeting and your first presentation?
We are closer, but we haven't finalized matters yet.
All right, no more detail than that you can give us?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Laura, thanks.
Councilman Burnett, and if anyone else wants to speak, put your name in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm using my tablet instead of my computer, so I don't have as much flexibility. So, but go ahead, Councilman Burnett.
Okay, thank you, President Wentz. I think Councilman Wagner asked and got answers to some of the questions I was going to ask as well. Couple points. He asked about the effect of Anthony's Restaurant. I do want to point out that is the impact of adding the additional units to the apartment complex, that it does in fact take out the Anthony's Restaurant building and the adjacent commercial spaces that may have been included in the program, in the project, in the previous form of this plan. I also want to ask, I noticed on the agenda for the zoning hearing that it states an additional 42 units. But Mr. Gorman, you said 48 additional units. Which is it?
It should be 48. I didn't. It should be 48 to a total of 190.
Okay, but that does need to be corrected. Whether it needs to be corrected in an advertisement, that's something the township should determine. Otherwise, it could be corrected at the zoning hearing. But I thank you for updating that information. By the way, I do, again, in my copy of the agenda, it does say that we're entertaining this evening both preliminary and final subdivision and land development approval. I believe that should just be preliminary. Is that correct,
That
President
is
Wayne?
correct.
Yeah, the
Yes.
resolution before you is just preliminary.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
it accidentally didn't get taken off the agenda, but it's correct on the resolution.
Great, great. And I do understand that this has to be resubmitted to Delco Planning Department and Planning Commission for action. That's just another level. And I'm pleased, very pleased that this is going back to the zoning hearing board. I think that that is the right path of action. I think that also gives the community, people that live in our community, the opportunity to have a say about what is being proposed. I have gotten several comments. I'll refrain from the commenting further about that input that I got. That'll be voiced at the zoning hearing meeting. But any further comments I have for this evening, I think I'll save until the agenda item for approval tonight. Thank you very much.
So, Don, if you have any questions specifically for them, this is the best time to ask it.
No, I don't. No, they've answered my questions.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Thank you. We have Councilman Burke next.
Thank you, President Wentz. After the project's all finished, how many parking spaces are on the site between the storage facility and the apartments?
I'm sorry, could you ask that one more time?
Yeah, between the supermarket and the 192 or 188 apartments, how many parking spaces are there on this site when the project is finished?
Just between, you mean just in the, Dave, could you circumscribe the parking lot for the supermarket? Are we talking just there?
Just here?
Councilperson Burke?
Well, the whole project.
Oh, you want to know total parking?
Yes.
Dan, do you know that number off the top of your head?
I think Roberto should know.
Roberto?
I can get it in a second.
Come on. It's just too small.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself.
Go ahead.
It's 640 spaces.
640?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, Councilman Burke?
No, I'm good. Thank you, President Wentz.
Okay, any other council members have any questions? Please speak up because I don't see you in the chat. Anybody? Okay, not hearing anybody. Okay, so thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you. To just keep in mind during our public comment, there may be other questions that will come in. So if you guys can be on standby for during that time to be able to answer questions. And we have a small land development presentation next. A few things. We'll have the public comment and then your resolution and the other land development resolution are the first two things that we're dealing with. So you'll know our answer tonight. Okay. So if you guys can stay around until we vote on your resolution, that would be excellent in case there are any other questions that come up between now and then. So is that yes?
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So next up, we have Mike Galante. Could you give us a brief presentation on the Shadeland Avenue land development? We didn't have a map last time, so a bunch of us were confused on exactly what was happening. So I was hoping you were able to help us out with that.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull the map up. I asked the developer for it today. Let me see if I got it here. That's the extension. That's the extension. Okay, am I able to share my screen?
You should be able to.
All right. Does everyone see this screen? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so essentially what the property owner of this property is looking to do, the property is 454 Shadeland Avenue. They are doing a subdivision of the property. They came in around 2017 and got some zoning relief to do the apartment building that you see on the plan, on the right side of the plan. There is an existing residential home, I guess you would call that the west side. They did the work, completed all the work. Now what the owner wants to do is he wanted to subdivide the property. When he submitted the plans, we did a review. The county did a review. We noticed that there was a setback variance required, which the owner subsequently submitted to the zoning board and obtained relief. And now he is in front of you for his subdivision approval. And the reason he is doing the subdivision is so that he can market the property. Essentially, he'll be able to sell off if he wants to, whether he wants to do it now or in the future. He can sell off a piece of it and still keep a piece to remain. So it's kind of just cleaning up the lots for him and making them marketable. He did, and just to note, he did get his zoning relief, and there are no proposed improvements as part of this project. Does that pretty much answer the questions?
Yes, because there was confusion on whether the single home actually existed or if that was being built versus the apartment complex, which one was there, and you answered it with they're both there.
Yeah, just a line on the plan is all they're changing, just to separate the properties.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That the map makes all the difference for me.
Yeah. In the future, I'll make sure I have them in the future for all projects prior to
Awesome.
meeting. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So do any other council members have any questions in reference to this? If so, just speak up. Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Galante. Great.
Stop share here.
Great. So next up, we have the public forum. If we can get Ms. Dobbins and everyone mute your own microphones. Councilwoman Billups, you and I are on timers. So let me get to my timer world. I've got the 3 minutes. You got 2.5, right?
Yes.
Okay, so. Okay, Ms. Dobbins, go.
Lee and Mike Jordan, 90 Pilgrim Lane, Drexel Hill, PA. Let me start by saying that my husband and I support the long overdue redevelopment of Drexeline Shopping Center. Our concern is the additional 42 apartment units and their potential impact on our already painfully overcrowded schools. We do not believe that this issue has been reasonably addressed. When the original plan was presented 2 years ago, it was for 142 units that would be a mix of studios, lofts, and one-bedroom apartments. When asked that question at the meeting last month, the developer said the mix of units has not yet been determined for the new proposal, which leads us to believe that the possibility of 2- and 3-bedroom apartments being built certainly exists. If that is the case and larger units are built and some of those residents turn out to be school-age children, the school district simply cannot handle more students. Our district is already at capacity. Even with the addition of the new school in Clifton Heights and an expanded Aronimink Elementary, it will only be enough to barely handle existing students and not more from new residential development. The fact that this point is being glossed over is very upsetting to us, especially when committee members at the last meeting seemed to be more concerned with bike rack placement and what kind of trees would be planted on the creek bank than the impact of this additional residential development on our community. In closing, we would be supportive of the additional units if the developers could assure us that they would be limited to studios, lofts, and one-bedroom apartments. We would suggest and encourage that Town Council takes the same view. Thank you in advance for your time and consideration. End of comment.
Okay. So for developers, just want to make sure you, I mean, I know I just asked that, so.
Yeah, we'll also be at the zoning hearing, we're presenting an updated economic report as well as a segmentation study. We're not looking at 3 bedrooms. We are looking at what the mix ought to be, but I think it's fair to keep in mind the price points of these market rate units with high levels of amenities and the attraction of public, the SEPTA line, et cetera. The cost of these units tend to be prohibitive actually from families, and it's actually much more cost effective to find rental housing with more space, garages, yards, et cetera, for families than is typically found in these types of apartments. So,
thank you. Okay, Ms. Dobbins, go.
Stacy Hawley, 1017 Mason Avenue, Drexel Hill. Dear council members and Mayor Keffer, after listening to the Drexeline presentation, I want to express my concerns and opposition to the expansion of the proposed apartment building's footprint. Unless the Aronimink Elementary expansion is approved and built, the school district can't handle any more students. Overcrowding is an issue that has to be addressed first. Thank you. All the best, Stacy. End of comment.
Okay. All right. And next.
Kyle McIntyre, 1040 Drexel Ave, Drexel Hill, PA. Does the Drexeline zoning development have any requirements that ensure a percentage of the units will be set aside at affordable rates? If so, what are those percentages? End of comment.
Okay, developers, anyone? I think you kind of answered it with Councilwoman Feralia's question, but.
The building's market rate. Mark, maybe you could address whether there's any requirements, but we're planning on a market rate building.
Yeah, there are no requirements that I'm aware of for anything. I mean, we're proposing market rate apartments.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and next.
That concludes public comment for this evening.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thank you. Wonderful. Next up, we have the Honorable Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer. Take it away, Mayor.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, council will vote on a preliminary land development plan for the development of the Drexeline Shopping Center. And we just heard a presentation from them. First and foremost, MCB delivered land development plans to the township for the first time in February of 2020. Since then, my administration has worked very cooperatively with MCB to improve the plan, and that has resulted in a decrease of impervious surfaces, better connectivity for pedestrians and vehicles, and a plan that reflects the realities of our post-COVID future. There is a big difference between a conceptual plan and a land development plan. The conceptual plan was presented at the May 2018 Zoning Hearing Board meeting. And it's very important for everyone to know that there was no land development plan prior to February of this year when MCB submitted one to the township. Regarding, comments about lost revenue in the interim, I will refer to the testimony of MCB's financial consultant at the May 2018 Zoning Hearing Board meeting. The development yields a positive net fiscal impact to the township of approximately $80,000 a year. The consultant goes on to say that during construction, we estimate approximately $460,000 net impact to the township. Most of that are construction permits and fees that would be required as part of the construction. And just to be clear, permit fees are not a revenue generator. Permit fees cover the township costs for plan review, inspections, and other professional services. In fact, municipal fees are expressly forbidden by law to be, by state law, to be moneymakers. I am absolutely thrilled that this development, which is at the Western Gateway into our township, is moving forward. And a copy of the Drexeline development transcript from the May 2018 zoning hearing board meeting will be posted to the township website, upperdarby.org. Also, as part of a settlement agreement, which council will vote on tonight, I state the following. Francis J. Catania faithfully served on the Board of Trustees of the Police Pension Plan and the Township Civil Service Commission from 1998 until February 19th, 2020. Township accepts Mr. Catania's voluntary resignation from these positions and hereby commends and thanks Mr. Catania for his long and devoted service. Switching gears, I am very pleased to announce that our township has been selected as a member of the local climate action program. It's called LCAP. That's administered by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. LCAP partners local governments with college and university students throughout the Commonwealth to develop comprehensive climate action plans. The teams also work with a DEP contractor to create these plans and put them into action. We are thrilled to be selected as one of the participants in the LCAP, and it's a highly competitive program. Our administration is committed to improving the lives of all Upper Darby residents in the short and the long term, and we look forward to working with the state and local students to ensure that we create a better climate for ourselves and our children. This season, we will continue the Christmas tree curbside collection on the weeks of January 4th to the 8th and January 11th to the 15th. You can put out your Christmas, you can put out your tree with your regular recycling. What is new this season is that residents can drop off their Christmas trees at Nailers Run Park beginning December 26th, just around the bend from the tennis courts. And I made a little drawing. Oh, let me. I'm quite the artist here. Oh, whoop. Here's Garrett Road. Barclay Square is over to the side. Here's the entrance. You drive past the tennis courts and up a little ways, you'll see a big mulch pile. And that's where you can drop off your Christmas trees.
Nice Christmas tree.
Yeah, if you don't want, if you can't wait until when they can be picked up at your curb, that's what you can do. So if you're dropping off your Christmas tree at Nailers Run Park, or if you're putting them on the curb, please remove all the decorations from the tree before you drop it off or that you leave it at your curb. The Christmas trees get chopped up into mulch, which is free to residents, but not contractors, and is used throughout the township. And it does keep the trees out of our regular trash stream. Our regular trash costs about $58 per ton. So it'd be great to take all those trees out and get them mulched. Recycling your cut tree will help keep our sanitation costs lower and also help the environment. Trees will not be collected with the regular trash pickup. So please bring your tree to Nailers Run Park starting on December 26th, or put them out with your recycling the first 2 full weeks of January. And on a related note, the trash and recycling calendars that you received last year post collections through the end of January. And we will be sending out the 2021 trash and recycling schedule notice in January as well. The current schedule, which goes to the end of January, is also available on our township website, www.upperdarby.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the collections of the trees and making it easily accessible for everyone to turn in their trees at the end, after the holidays. So that's awesome. So I have a couple things, just want to let people know that there are people out there stealing catalytic converters from under your car. So if you see someone under your car with a saw under the back of your car, that is what they are doing. I know from personal experience, because when I turned my car on, it was really super loud, and that's what was missing. I just got my car back from the shop. They did put a locking mechanism on it to secure it to my car, but apparently Hondas and Priuses are catalytic converters are in high demand right now. Apparently they sell the parts for the metal. So please be aware of that. If you have any of those vehicles, to get it checked out by your mechanics and have them put locks on it for you, because luckily I had insurance that covered it, but not everyone does. So and that was a $1,600 bill to fix that. So I just wanted to, share that my personal experience with everyone else. I'd hate for others to be in that situation. There were 3 other cars in the shop for the same reason when I picked mine up today. So also wanted to thank Men of Action, Brothers of Faith, and the Bywood Community Association for their 8th annual family holiday giveaway, and to all groups in our area that are helping to provide for residents in this holiday season, whether it's for food or gifts for their kids and so forth. Thank you for everyone who's doing that work and helping out at this time of the year. And I know that our township has been doing food share. The food distribution is going on at least until the end of December, and hopefully trying to work it out to continue in January, but I don't think we have solidified whether that or not that's possible, but I know that they're working on it. So I just wanted to thank everyone for keeping an eye out on each other this holiday season. So thank you very much. All right, so next up we have Planning, Zoning, and Building Code Committee. Co-chairs Councilman Gwynn and Billups, members Councilman Tunis and Bonnet. At this point in time, can we get Solicitor Kilkenny to give us a reading of resolution number 56-20?
Unmute myself. There we go. Resolution 56-20. And this relates to the 456 Shadeland Avenue resolution, preliminary and final plan that Mr. Galante just referenced and explained to council. So I'm going to read the therefore clauses.
Thank you.
Now therefore be it resolved by Upper Darby Council that the plan is hereby granted a conditional, preliminary, and final subdivision plan approval, subject to the satisfaction of the following conditions. 1, prior to the recording of the plan, the applicant must address to the satisfaction of the township engineer the comments and conditions contained in the August 19th, 2020 MG engineering review letter, including but not limited to the conditions related to access, cross access for the property once divided. Prior to recording the plan, applicant shall comply with all applicable comments contained in the May 22nd, 2020 Delaware County Planning Commission, Planning Department, the satisfaction of the township engineer. 3, applicant shall comply with the Upper Darby Township Zoning Hearing Board's July 27, 2017 decision and October 29, 2020 decision, and all conditions imposed therein. 4, applicant must obtain any necessary approvals and reviews from the township engineer, traffic engineer, Delaware County Planning Department, Pennsylvania DEP, NDOT, or any necessary outside agencies, and obtain any necessary planning modules, approvals, or permits, if any, before the plan is recorded. 5, applicant must complete all required easements and or maintenance agreements or declarations in form satisfactory to the township engineer and solicitor prior to the recording of the plan. Applicant will provide any necessary legal descriptions for any necessary easements. 6, a revised recordable plan shall ultimately be submitted to the for township administrative review and approval that addresses all requests for further plan details, additions, corrections, and clarifications set forth in the above-mentioned review letters. 7, all outstanding township fees, township engineering fees, and township legal fees, and any and all professional fees associated with this review and approval of the application shall be paid in full prior to the plan being recorded in accordance with Section 503 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. 8, the resolution shall bind the applicant and the applicant's successors. 9, the new deeds for new lots must be recorded contemporaneously with recording the plan. Waivers, there are no waivers for this plan, and it has the signature blocks of the council president and officers. Thank you very much. That concludes my reading.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve resolution 56-20? Council members, turn on your mic.
Second it. I'd like to make a motion to move. I'd like to second that motion.
So Gwynn and Tunis. Are there any questions or concerns on resolution 56-20? Ruling. Okay, I'm seeing none. If you do have a concern and I'm not seeing you, please let me know. Okay, hearing none. Turn on your microphones, council members. All those in favor of resolution 56-20, please signify by saying aye.
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 No, say your name. Ayes have it. Abstain? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So just to clarify, our next up is resolution 57-20 for Drexeline Land Development. Just to make sure I prep correctly, solicitors, that we do need to do each waiver individually as well as the resolution as a whole, or can we do them all together?
So often how it is I think I'll go ahead and read the resolution. I'll read the waivers. I'll ask Mr. Galante to explain the waivers and see if there are any objections from council. And then you would approve the resolution and all waivers if there are no objections from council on the waivers.
Okay.
Got that?
Yep, I'm prepared to do it either way. I just wanted to cover all the bases. So.
Yep, trying to do it efficiently, but give people an opportunity to comment. Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Go forth.
All right. Let's see. Okay. So in the I'm going to read the therefore clauses and down, but it was brought to my attention. I was emailing with counsel for the applicant, and one of the whereas clauses, which we'll address, just want to clarify something. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas clause down, meaning the applicant has caused to be prepared and filed with the township a certain subdivision land development plan for the project dated June 6th, 2019. And rather than being last revised August 28th, 2020, it's going to read October.
I don't hear you anymore.
It's going to read October 23rd, 2020.
October 23rd.
Council understands. Is there a problem? I'm sorry.
We're talking.
It out. So I just want.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, the last submitted plan was October 23rd, 2020, and the 5th whereas clause. That's all I meant.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and read the therefore clauses or the binding parts of the resolution waivers, just so council and the public can hear. I'm going to ask Mr. Galante to comment on any of the waivers if he and staff recommend them. See if there are any council questions. Then I would recommend, as I said previously, a motion to approve both the resolution and the waivers.
Great.
Okay. Great. All right. Hold on. Got it right here. Okay. All right. Now, therefore, be resolved by Upper Darby Council that the plan is hereby granted preliminary and final land development approval, subject to the satisfaction of the following conditions. 1, Prior to the recording of the plan, applicant must address the dissatisfaction of the township engineer, the comments and contained in his December 2020 MG engineering review letter to the extent such comments are not already addressed by the township's latest version of the plan. 2, prior to the recording of the plan, applicant must address the dissatisfaction of the township engineer, the comments and conditions contained in the May 14, 2020 Heinrich and Klein Associates Incorporated traffic review letter, except to the extent such comments are superseded by or are inconsistent with the PennDOT highway occupancy permit issued to the applicant dated April 31st, 2020. 3, prior to the recording of the plan, the applicant shall consider all applicable comments contained in the April 17, 2020 Delaware County Planning Department, including the requirement to resubmit a revised plan to the Delaware County Planning Department. 4, applicant should comply with the Upper Darby Township Zoning Hearing Board's June 28, 2018 decision and all conditions imposed therein, and obtain any additional zoning relief and time extensions necessary to the prior recording of the plan. As was referenced by the applicant's attorney, that's going to happen on December 22nd, 2020, at least a zoning hearing will. 5, applicant shall provide a gateway sign at the intersection of Township Line Road and State Road. Sign is subject to the approval by the township engineer. A rendering of the sign shall be submitted prior to final approval. 6, applicant must obtain any necessary approvals and reviews from the Delaware County Planning Department, Pennsylvania DEP, PennDOT, or any other necessary outside agency, and obtain any necessary planning modules, approvals, or permits before the plan is recorded. 7, applicant must complete all required easements and or maintenance agreements and or declarations, including but not limited to stormwater management facilities operation and maintenance agreements and forms satisfactory to the township engineer and township solicitor prior to the recording of the plan. Applicant will provide all necessary legal descriptions for any necessary easements. 8, a revised recordable plan shall ultimately be submitted for township administrative review and approval that addresses all requests for further plan details, additions, corrections, and clarifications set forth in the above mentioned review letters. 9, prior to the recording of the plan, applicant shall execute a land development agreement and financial security agreement drafted by the township solicitor and post financial security in the form of a letter of credit or cash escrow to guarantee the installation of all public improvements associated with the project, amounts recommended by the township engineer. 10, all outstanding township fees, township engineering fees, and township legal fees, and any all professional fees associated with the review and approval of the application and plans shall be paid in full before the plan is recorded in accordance with Section 503 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. 11, the applicant shall bind the resolution shall bind the applicant and future successors. 12, in regards to the pad site for the property intended for future development, the applicant or applicant's successors must obtain any necessary township approvals, relief and or permits, and pay applicable fees unless additional relief is obtained prior to the construction of a structure on the pad site. 13, applicants should comply with the terms of the stipulation and settlement entered in the Delaware County Court of Common Pleas for the zoning appeal docketed 2018 5951. Waivers. 1, Section 803A .29 for relief from the requirement that all streets be designed as complete streets is hereby either approved or denied. 2, Section 805C2 for relief from the requirement that limiting the number of driveways per lot frontages is hereby either approved or denied. 3, Section 805C3 for relief from the requirement of minimum off-site driveway center lines of non-residential driveways entering opposite sides of the street is hereby either approved or denied. 4, Section 816A8E for relief from the requirement of a 10-foot stream buffer is hereby either approved or denied. 5, Section 817D3BI for relief from the requirement of landscape screening around all parking areas adjacent to residential uses is hereby either approved or denied. 6, Section 817D3B2 for relief from the requirement of landscape screening around parking lots adjacent to property a different zoning district is hereby either approved or denied. 7, Section 817D4 for relief from the requirement of landscape screening around loading areas is either hereby approved or denied. And finally, section 817E2, 2 and 3 from relief to the requirement of building foundation plantings is hereby either approved or denied. I would like to ask Mr. Galante to comment on the various waivers and his recommendation on them, and see if council had any questions about those waivers before taking action.
Yes, thank you. I can give a brief overview of the waivers. What I'll do is I'll go follow Solicitor Kilkenny's resolution. The applicant did provide a waiver request letter, and I actually have that in front of me. And so what I'll do is I'll just briefly go through the waivers, and if there's any questions, let me know. And the applicant is here as well if there's any questions of the applicant. So the first comment for the relief from requirement that all streets be designed as complete streets. The applicant in their waiver request letter stated that there are no new streets proposed. They are doing some significant work on Township Line Road and State Road, which are PennDOT roadways. They are providing sidewalks, and there's a trail as part of this project. So while they're not providing a complete street, it is a Commonwealth roadway and subject to PennDOT approvals, and therefore I would support this waiver. The second waiver requires limiting the number of driveways per lot frontages. And I think the ordinance, subdivision land development ordinance, requires a maximum of 2 driveways per frontage. This site is not just a typical single-use site, it's a multi-use site. I think there are currently 3 driveways. They're replacing the site with, they're putting back or upgrading 3 driveways and modifying access, thus meeting PennDOT requirements, and therefore I would support that waiver. There's the third waiver has to deal with the offset between center lines of non-residential driveways. The driveway to the westernmost portion of the site, it would help to have the plan up if possible. The westernmost portion of the site is directly across from the automobile service station driveway. However, they are converting that driveway into a right-in, right-out only. So essentially what they're doing, it's an existing driveway that was full movement. They're going to make it now right in, right out, thus restricting turning movements. And driveway was approved by PennDOT. Therefore, I would support that waiver. There's a relief for requirement from a 10-foot stream buffer. And basically the applicant obtained approval from this requirement, I believe, as part of their, let me discuss that one. Basically, the 10-foot buffer, is essentially the walking path. So, since they're providing that walking path, and that is something that we're requesting as part of this development, I think the walking path provides direct access to the creek and allows a much better situation than what you have today, and therefore I would support that waiver as well. Then section 817 D3 BI relief from requirement for landscape screening around parking areas adjacent to residential uses, and also waiver number 6 817 D3 BII is there's similar waivers. One restricts the setback for parking from residential uses. The other restricts setback for parking from residential zones on the eastern portion of the site where the residential apartments are proposed. That waiver has that buffer requirement was reduced, and I think their solicitor can discuss it if there's any questions, but I believe that was reduced as part of their zoning relief, and therefore, given the fact that it does allow for efficient circulation around the site and for the development to operate more efficiently, I would, support that waiver as well. The remaining 2 waivers deal with landscaping around the loading zone. I think you can see from the plan, this has to deal with loading at the I guess the ShopRite and the Wawa site. And essentially there is an existing condition where loading is visible from the roadway. The applicant is increasing landscaping on the site and buffering, in my opinion, to the maximum extent that they can. And therefore that waiver is justifiable. And the final waiver has to deal with the requirement for building foundation planning. While the applicant is not proposing all the building foundation planning throughout the site, I think their engineer can attest that they are proposing to put the plantings at other locations around the site. And I can have their engineer talk about their landscape plan if the council would like them to. But other than that, they already 8 waivers, and it's for a development this size, it's somewhat typical. So I take no exceptions to waivers.
Great, thank you. Are there any council members that have any questions about the waivers? Please speak up.
I do, Don Bonnet, President
Go
Wynn.
ahead.
Michael, would you please explain waiver number 3 again?
Yes, sir. Waiver 3, that is a waiver from the minimum offset between driveway center lines of non-residential driveways entering opposite sides of any street. I think if you point to the, I'm more looking at the northwest section of the site off of State Road. The driveway closest to the automobile service station at the intersection of Township Line and State. Do you see that? If you go over to the right a little bit, those driveways are offset less than that requirement, but the applicant is restricting turning movements to right in, right out. And ultimately, why you would have those kind of waivers that would need to be granted is that from a traffic standpoint, you always look at left turns and conflicting left turns, and the fact that the driveway that the applicant is proposing is going to be right out, right only, right in, right out only. It eliminates a lot of the traffic conflicts that would result from a full movement driveway adjacent to another full movement driveway.
Thank you very much. I do have a question about a condition. Actually, I'd like to add a condition. And it was mentioned by Councilman Wagner, and I think it's a very important one. And that is, I would like to add the condition with the approval of council. And Mr. Solicitor, with your advice as to whether or not I need to move to amend the resolution, please advise me accordingly. But I would like to add a condition which was already agreed to by the developer, but I would like it stated as a condition that vehicular access through the site from Woodland Avenue must be maintained for free access to State Road.
So let's ask, I know the developers team is still on, maybe their counselor and or Mr. Bramble can comment on if they're willing to accept adding that as a condition.
Mark, I'll leave that to you to respond.
Well, I was just going to ask you, David, that's the plan. So do you have a problem with making that a condition?
We don't have an issue with maintaining that access between Woodland Drive and our site.
Okay, then the applicant has no objection to Councilman Bonnet's proposal.
Okay, so when there is a motion and a second to approve this preliminary plan and all waivers, it will be noted that we'll add the condition that Mr. Bonnet stated here at the meeting. And can you just say it one more time, Councilor?
Yes, based on the comment expressed by Councilman Wagner, I would like to ask that a condition be added to ensure vehicular access through the site from Woodland Avenue with free access to State Road by those vehicles.
Okay.
Or some
Great.
version
Well,
of
that will be a condition we'll add to the approval resolution. Seems like there's no dispute to it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else have any questions? Council members, please speak up. if you have a
Okay.
question.
I-
Councilman Gwynn?
I just had a brief clarification more than anything else. I seem to remember that there had to be a distance of 50 feet between the stream and the property, if you will, trails and things like that. Is that what we're saying with this reference to the minimum 10 feet between the stream as a buffer? We're doing that in lieu of the 50 feet or what? Because of the floodplain that existed.
Yeah, so the Saldo requirement is to allow a stream buffer less than 10 feet. There may be a separate zoning requirement that might have come up during the zoning meetings. I don't actually have that in front of me. I can look that up real quick. And
I think it was associated with floodplains.
let me just pull up.
The information that I believe that we were given indicated that they have moved everything back and raised the ground. We're going to compact and raise the ground.
So under,
protected.
yeah, Councilman Gwynn, under section 70B of the zoning ordinance, they went in for zoning relief to allow a 0 feet stream buffer at the top of the bank of Darby Creek where 50 feet is required. I think when that went to this actually went to, had an appeal, and it went in front of, during the appeal process, I think they did increase that buffer. I don't know if Mark D'Amico could discuss that a little bit further. I wasn't involved with the whole zoning process at that time, but it is in my notes as part of my review. So that would be a zoning comment that you're referencing, the 50 feet requirement.
So it's not a land development issue, it's a zoning issue.
It was a zoning issue, yes.
Yes, it was a request that we made for relief, and that request was granted by the zoning hearing board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other council members have any questions or concerns on the waivers? I can't see you, so turn on your mic and speak.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so just to clarify, as far as the buffer zone, I know that we're utilizing the trail as encompassing that 10-foot buffer zone from the creek. Some residents have concerns about making that a natural, a regular thing. So I just wanted to let others know that there are concerns about that. But I understand that this has been a long process coming. This plan has a lot more greenery with the trails encompassing that within that 10-foot buffer zone gives a little more space than the original plan for 0 buffer. So 0 foot buffer. So just wanted to share that. Are there any other council members that have any questions or concerns on this? Okay, hearing none, then we will move forward for a motion to pass resolution 57-20 in its complete with all of its waivers and amended as far as the vehicular access from Woodland Ave. Can we get a motion to approve this resolution?
I'd like to make a motion that this is moved.
Second.
Effie's? Yes. Okay, are there any questions or concerns? Can we unshare the screen so I can see my people? I'm sorry, I can't see them with the shared screen. There we are. Hello, guys. All right, so are there any questions or concerns on this resolution by council?
Don Barnett does, council
Okay.
member.
Councilman
Council
Barnett?
President, thank you, Council President Wentz. I think, just like to make a comment about where this is going. I think it's extremely important that this project move ahead in some acceptable form to both all the or both the residents of Upper Darby Township, our taxpayers, and this Township Council. I want to stress that the determination of whether to grant this developer a variance that has been requested to allow the additional residential units rests exclusively with the 3 members of the zoning hearing board, and that will be heard on the 22nd of December at 7 p.m. It is they and only they who have the authority and responsibility to determine if granting a variance for the extension of the apartment complex and the effects it will have on eliminating commercial space that would have otherwise remained as a result of the formally approved plan by the zoning hearing board in 2018. I think it's they, as members of the zoning hearing board, that must make that determination as to whether this is in the best interest of our residents. It's a process that I am very pleased that the developer has agreed to submit for in terms of the variances. I think we had some discussion. There was some debate as to whether it was going in that route. It's always been my opinion that there was no alternative but to send it there. So I do appreciate the fact that it will find its way to the zoning hearing board. And by the way, I thank the zoning hearing board for establishing a special night for a special meeting to hear this. I know this month they have a very extensive agenda with other applications. And I know if this were put on that agenda, we would probably not get to it that evening, which is the regular scheduled meeting for the zoning hearing board this month. So again, I want to express my appreciation to them as the zoning hearing board for doing this. Thank you.
Great. Any other council members?
I'm Wagner.
Go ahead, Councilman Wagner.
Thank you. I'm going to be real brief. I think it's very important to the whole community that this project should be approved. We could debate all night about whether it's a better project or not as good a project as the one that was considered 2 years ago. I don't think that matters now. I think it's unhealthy to get into that. In fact, this is the plan that we have in front of us. And I'm imploring everyone involved here and at the zoning board as well, not to nitpick it to death over the details. Everyone can agree that if this is carried out, it will be a great deal better than what's sitting there now. So I plan to vote for it, and I hope everybody else does too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council members? Okay. I'm not, Councilman Silva, go ahead.
Sure. I will also like to keep it brief. I agree with my colleagues here. I believe this is a good plan, and I believe it's in the best interest of the township to move forward with it. So I hope we do that tonight and also at the zoning hearing as well.
Great, thank you. Yes, I think this is a great plan. I like it a lot more. I know everyone wants to, there's always ways to make it better, but I greatly appreciate everything Mayor Keffer has done to and team to bring it to what we have before us tonight. It's, for me personally, it's 100 times better than what I saw a couple of years ago. So I'm grateful for all the greenery and all the environmental concerns that you put into the equation. It's so much better. Thank you very much. You guys rock. And that being said, council members, turn your microphones on. All those in favor of passing resolution 57-20, all of its waivers and amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Abstain, say your name. Ayes have it, unanimous. Thank you all, you rock. Thank you. Your preliminary land development resolution is passed. Thank you, developers, for all your hard work and for joining us at council meetings. You guys are fabulous.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
having
much,
us.
council.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you,
very much.
NCB.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You
You
too.
too.
Great. Awesome. So next up, we have Law and Government and Rules and Procedures Committee, co-chairs Phillips and Silva, council members Blackwell and Sadiq. Solicitor Kilkenny, we need a summary of ordinance number 3085 before we begin our public hearing of it.
Sure. This was discussed at the last committee meeting. To summarize this ordinance, you heard the mayor's public statement related to this and Mr. Catania's service to the township. This goes back to this is all related to a court settlement that has been entered into between the administration, council, and Mr. Catania. Mr. Catania, as you heard, voluntarily agrees to resign from the Civil Service Commission and the Police Pension Board. He was removed by council back in February. He contested that. We ended up in court. Mr. Catania won at the Court of Common Pleas level in the sense that on one of the counts, in the sense that he was saying that to be removed from the Police Pension Board, you'd have to go to the Delaware County Orphans Court. Obviously, this was a matter of contention to both Mr. Catania, council, and the administration. So after conferring with the mayor, thought it would be best that we settle this matter. So we will pay the administration, pay Mr. Catania $35,000. He will resign. We will pass this ordinance change, which is prudent, and we don't really have any disagreement with that. The mayor read her statement, and rather than continue to fight in court, Commonwealth Court, Supreme Court, or wherever we'd end up, which would cost far more than that amount of money, was probably best that all parties settle. So that's what we have before council this evening, and that's a brief summary of what it is and why we're here. So section 302, so the ordinance 3085 is this. Section 302 of the Upper Darby Township Administrative Code is hereby amended to add section 8 as follows: except as otherwise provided by law, the mayor shall have the ability to appoint and remove members of all township authority boards and commissions with or without cause, subject to council approval. Notwithstanding the foregoing, the trustees of the township pension plan or trust funds may not be removed without orphans court approval to the extent required by the Pennsylvania Probate Estate Fiduciaries Code, and the commissioners of the township's Civil Service Commission may not be removed without cause prior to the expiration of their terms. There's a severability clause. There is an effective date and a repealer of all inconsistent ordinances. And that concludes my reading of the ordinance.
Great, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing for ordinance number 3085. If we can get Ms. Dobbins back online for any public comment for this public hearing.
Council President Wentz, there were no public comments received via email or phone for this ordinance.
Thank you. Seeing no one here to, no public comments for this, for ordinance 3085, please consider the public hearing closed. So thank you all. So next up, we have can we get a motion? All council members turn on your microphones. We need a motion.
Blackwell makes a motion to approve.
Okay, so I heard Blackwell and
Second.
Bryn.
They got it.
Any questions or concerns on ordinance 3085? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of ordinance 3085, please signify by saying aye.
This
Opposed,
is an
say your
ordinance,
name.
don't we have to vote on it?
Yes.
Roll call vote?
Oh, good point. It's a roll call vote. Thank you. Sorry. I was just rocking and rolling on my resolution mode. So Councilwoman Phillips, please take it away for a roll call vote on 3085.
Sure. Thank you, Council President Wentz.
I was trying to hop for you, but it's all you, girl. I didn't mean to take it away from you.
Okay. Councilman Tunis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Billups is a yes. Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Councilwoman Blackwell,
Yes.
Councilman Gwynn,
Yes.
Councilman Burt,
Yes.
Councilman Siddiq,
Yes.
Councilwoman Faralia,
She may have had to disappear at this time, so she's excused.
okay. Councilman Barnett,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
No.
and Council President Wentz.
Yes.
Okay, so one excuse and one no.
Okay. So the ordinance passes.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So next up, we have Finance and Appropriations Committee, co-chairs Councilman Gwynn and Silva, members Blackwell and Burke. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a summary on Resolution 50-20?
Thank you, President Wentz. This is a resolution of the Township adopting the 2021 budget, providing a financial plan of all township funds and activities for the ensuing year. Whereas the Section 906A of the Homeborough Charter requires that council publish a general summary of the budget and notice providing the time and place of where the budget, copies of the message and budget will be available for inspection and time and place for hearing. This is also required by the Homeborough Charter to be no less than 2 weeks after such publication. This was in fact publicized 2 weeks prior to the hearings. And this is a adoption according to Section 906C of the Upper Darby Homeborough Charter, that council adopts the budget by resolution on or before the last day of the fiscal year currently ending. And now therefore be it resolved that the budget for the fiscal year of 2021 be approved. So is the reading of this resolution.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve Resolution 50-20? Gwynn and
So moved.
Was that Blackwell?
Yes, Blackwell.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions or concerns on 50-20? All right, seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of Resolution 50-20, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, say your name. Ayes have it. Councilwoman Faralia is excused. Everyone else is a yes. Thank you. Great job. All right, next up we have okay, so next up is ordinance number 3086. We did not have this in writing at our last meeting. So we're going to do a little discussion before the formalized first reading of this ordinance. So can you give us a summary of the ordinance before we do official reading so that council can just ask any questions they have on this ordinance, since we didn't get a chance to do that, didn't get a chance to see it physically in our committee side of the equation.
Sure. Thank you, President.
Thank you.
This is Ordinance 3086. This is the ordinance that affixes the tax rate for 2021 and the appropriating specific funds estimated to be required for the specific purpose of municipal government. This is required by the Homeborough Charter to be passed in a ordinance. So this is done pursuant to Section 902. The mills were not available as we talked about in last week's meeting. There was a county-wide reassessment and we received the reassessment numbers. I believe it was Tuesday at 4 p.m. Gary Marin, the Director of Finance, wanted to make sure, because there was such a significant increase in the assessed value given the the countywide reassessment, he wanted to make sure that the mills were actually in fact correct. That being said, we did not have it. Now we do have a copy of the mills, which is provided. The total tax rate is 13.07. Mr. Marin will discuss that later on if council has questions. And then there's also a listing of the general funds, the summary of estimated receipts, summary and the summary of appropriations, general government, protection of persons and property, public works, health services, electrical, parking meters, leisure services, library, COSA, HUD, and miscellaneous rotations, which is workers' comp, the volunteer fire relief allocation, insurance, pension, and there is a contingency. There's also sewer funds and the summary of appropriations, the highway aid fund, and the sinking fund. Are all provided, and there is a repealer and a severability clause. So, so is the summary.
Great, thank you. So, Gary, can you give us a little more intel on this, as if we were in a committee meeting and you would give us an update on this realm for us?
Certainly. If I can share my screen for 1 second. I will show you what this has entailed. This is the, first of all, the letter from the County Assessment Appeals Board, giving us the assessment at $4,325,580,883 as the total valuation for the township. What I did was prepared this millage calculation spreadsheet showing how the assessed value and the total amount of the levy has grown over these years, 2015 through this coming year, 2021. So you can see that there was relatively little change in assessed value from 15 to 20, and then this massive jump from 2.6 billion to 5.3 billion. That said, you'll notice that strictly in keeping with keeping the revenue neutral, aspect of this millage calculation, the total levy in 2020 is intended to be duplicated to the dollar in 2021. And so this infers a raw calculation and a millage of 13.07 as down from 21.38.
Wow.
Right, then all that I did here was simply allocate between the portion of, splitting the property taxes between the general fund and the sinking fund in keeping with what the total cost of the sinking fund. This is the total expected spend on bonds, including this $10 million issue that we are about to put out. The total cost to us will be $2,711,027, which results in 0.63 mils being assigned to the sinking fund and leaving 12.44 assigned to the general fund. And that's all there is to it. Any questions I can field?
Council members, do you have any questions? Please.
Can we get
I
this
can't
forwarded to us?
Sure. I didn't, my oversight. I'll get that off right away.
Thank you.
Any other council members have any questions on this? Any questions for Gary, that is?
Actually, I do, if I
Go
could,
ahead.
Council
Yeah,
President.
please.
So basically, the millage rate is almost half of what it was previously. So if someone received an assessment of their home and it was double what it was previous, their estimated tax should be about the same. Is that correct?
On average across the township, that's absolutely correct. The reality is that this 4.3 billion is not a general assessment for everything in the township. It is a compilation of assessments for every individual property. And so it's reasonable to assume that single family homes may appreciate faster than storefronts on 69th Street or row homes in certain portions of the township. And so it's not going to be absolutely flat for everybody, every residence and every business in the township. Some will have appreciated faster, and so their total bill is going to increase a little bit.
Okay.
But that increase won't be because of the Upper Darby tax.
No. Again, it is revenue neutral in total, but individual properties increase in value at differing rates.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other
Danielle?
questions from council members? Councilman Quinn?
No, Danielle.
Sorry, Councilwoman Blackwell, go ahead.
So you kind of just answered my question, because when you mentioned depreciation, I just wanted you to clarify that for the public of what would happen to their property values.
Well, again, clearly every property in Upper Darby has gone up in value over the last 10 years or so since the last appraisal. But again, there are various components that make every single property unique. You know, the frontage, you know, the traffic on the street, the type of construction of the property, its usage, you know, how much surrounding land, you know, green space there is. There are any number of factors that are going to change the increase in value of any given property.
Thank you.
Trying not to be long-winded, but I don't know a better way to say it.
Thank you.
All good. Okay, any other council members?
Wagner.
Go ahead, Councilman Wagner.
Just very briefly, Mr. Marin, we as elected members of council, I'm sure we all get questions from the public. What's this going to mean to me? And obviously, we can't answer that with any specificity. But now that this assessment at least has been received by the township, can you give us any guidance at all as to the best way to answer that question as directed to the typical taxpayer in the township, to the extent there is such a person?
Beyond what I've just said, let me offer this. This number, the 4.3 billion, is, as you saw in the letter, is simply one number that was given to us in total by the county. We are in the process of receiving a file. It's in the process of being reformatted by the county that will give us every single property assessment for upload into our system. Once we've done that, I can run some routines against those numbers and identify properties that have increased by, say, 5% or more, 10% or more, you know, God forbid, that if anybody is really being hit hard, perhaps I can identify specific tranches and pass that information along to you in some form.
And I appreciate that. Is it possible to predict an outer limit that's likely even for the largest increases? Is it 10%? Is it more? Is it less?
Sir, at this point, I honestly have no idea what's in that file, but that question I will answer for you the moment I see the data.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Council President, could I jump in quickly?
Yeah, please.
This might answer your question, Councilman Wagner. I'm not sure. And Gary, please correct me if I'm wrong, but whatever the homeowner's assessed value is, if you multiply by the new millage, you will be able to not just predict or estimate, but actually calculate your tax bill. And if you compare it to last year's tax bill, you'll know what your increase or decrease will be. And at the same time, I think a general answer would be, if your property appreciated more quickly than most other properties, you'll probably see an increase. So it's sort of about the rate of appreciation. And somewhere out there, there's a number where if your assessment went up more than $30,000 or $40,000, you're likely to see an increase in your bill. If your assessment didn't go up that much, you probably won't see an increase in your bill. So I don't know if those little rules of thumb are helpful or not, but I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, so let me just add to that for a moment. Taken from this millage calculation, which again I will distribute very shortly, to Vince's point, every homeowner in the township is a component of this $4.3 billion. I don't have those tens of thousands of assessments in my possession, but the individual homeowners do. And
right, they're on the website too, I think. Sorry.
to the extent that they can put these numbers and simply multiply it by this string, the 13.07 will be off by potentially a couple of $1,000s. If they multiply it by this number right here, the raw calculation, they'll get a fairly exact tax bill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other council members, please speak up because I can't see you and I can't see you waving. That's okay. Councilman,
Does anybody else have a question first?
Councilman Gwynn, I called on you.
I'm sorry. What I was going to ask, if Gary can let us know what the average was, or the largest modal group of the homeowner where they happen to fall, so we know approximately what people would be dealing with.
I thought that was part of the data he doesn't have yet.
Now, and so the answer to that question is the same that I just gave a moment ago to Councilman Wagner. As soon as I do receive the data, and I'm sorry, Vince, I'm not familiar with what's on the website, but I don't have the data in an electronic fashion so that I can, run any kind of regression analysis against it to provide meaningful information to you about, how many units are above or below the mean or the mode, right, or even determine what the mode is. And so as soon as I get that file, I'll be able to run those calculations and I'll happily distribute them.
Absolutely. And you could, once you have the file, you can run them for the whole township and do analysis and so on. Individual property owners can go to the county's website and search their own address for that information currently.
That clarification.
Sure.
Great. Any other questions or concerns on this resolution? Ordinance. Okay, seeing none. Can we get an official first reading of ordinance number 3086? And however you choose to do it, Solicitor Richardson.
Okay, this is an ordinance of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, affixing the tax rate for year 2021, and appropriating specific sums estimated to be required for the specific purpose of municipal government. Whereas pursuant to section 902 of the Home Rule Charter of the Township of Upper Darby, the mayor submitted to Township Council a proposed budget accompanying the fiscal year 2021, whereas the budget provides a complete financial plan for township funds. Pursuant to section 906A of the Home Rule Charter, Council published a general summary of the budget and notice stating the times and places where the copies of the budget and budget message were available for inspection by the public. 2 hearings were held on the budget. Following public hearings and after due consideration, the budget was adopted by council without amendment by resolution 5520. In furtherance of funding the 2021 budget, council may establish a tax on all real property, improved or unimproved, in the township subject to taxation for the calendar year 2021 on each dollar of assessed valuation. Therefore, be it ordained as follows. Section 1, that a tax be and the same be is hereby on all property and occupations within the said township. Taxation for the township purposes for the fiscal year 2021 as follows. Tax rate for general fund purposes, the sum of 12.44 mils on each $1,000 of assessed valuation For debt purposes, 0.33 mils on each $1,000 of assessed valuation. The same be summarized in tabular form as follows. Section 2, that the expenses for the fiscal year 2021, the following amounts are hereby appropriated from revenue available for the current fiscal year and for the specific purposes set below, which are more fully itemized in budget form. We have the general fund, and we also have the summary of estimated receipts, tax receipts, other revenue, and grants. We have a total estimated general fund receipts of $76,375,433. We have a summary of appropriation for general government, protection of persons and property, health services, electrical, parking meters, leisure services, library, COSA, HUD, miscellaneous, with a total of $12,175,610, and the total from the appropriations from the general $79,634,989. The Consumer Fund summary estimate receipts, summary of appropriations, the Highway Fund, the summary of appropriations for the sinking fund, and the severability clause and the inconsistency clause enacted and ordained on next December 16th. So ends the reading. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And next up, we have a small discussion on ordinance number 3087, which was also not available in written form at our last meeting, at our committee meeting. So could we just get a summary of this ordinance at this point in time?
Excuse me. And this is the appropriation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is ordinance 3087, an ordinance of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, authorizing that part of certain unencumbered appropriations allocated by the 2020 operating budget, the capital budget series 2009, and the capital budget series 2016 and 2017 be transferred from various departments and agencies to other departments and agencies within the township, and repealing all ordinance and resolutions inconsistent herewith. There are, as caption shares, is that there is an unencumbered appropriation allocated by the budget series 2009, 2016, 2017, and there's also a certain unencumbered appropriation amount in the 2020 operating budget. Is required by Section 909D1 Charter that there be a ordinance to reappropriate certain unencumbered appropriations be transferred from various departments and agencies to other departments. And it provides for the Section 1 provides for the unencumbered appropriation for the capital budget series 2009. The Section 2, the capital budget series 2016, with a specific purpose of reducing the unfunded OPEG liability, which Gary can discuss if there's questions. And then Section 3 covers the 2020 operating budget appropriations. So ends the summary.
Real quick, Councilor Wentz, just to make everybody aware, on 3087, I know there will be discussion. Just want to make sure that we eventually, council will have to vote both on 3086 and 3087 by roll call. Although we discussed 3086 and had the hearing, there was never a vote. So just
the vote doesn't happen until next week. This is the first reading of both these.
All right. You don't want to vote on the intro. Okay.
But we do have to move introduction, do we not?
And you do. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess because we normally do an advertisement. So, all right. Well, then let's rewind. I'm sorry.
Well, you can finish this part and then make a motion to introduce 3086 and 3087 at once, and
okay,
we'll be fine.
Great.
Yeah. And just bring it to your attention. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so at this point in time, Gary, can you give us a little more background on this ordinance?
I'll start by saying, regrettably, this one's going to be a little bit more complicated than discussing 3086, but here we go. First, in this one ordinance, we address appropriations involving 3 separate budgets: the capital budget series 2009, followed by the capital budget series 2016 and 17, and then the operating budget. Second, our operating budget in its entirety encompasses 4 funds: the general fund, the sewer fund, the sinking fund, and the highway aid fund. This ordinance, however, only addresses the general fund and sewer fund, as they're the only operating funds that require adjustment to the appropriations at this time. Third, each of these budgets is truly independent of the others, which is why a specific department, say Public Works, might be giving up appropriations in one budget but receiving appropriations in another. The fourth issue, however, is the most confusing and the most significant. And that is the transfer of funds appropriated to the capital budget series 2016 and 17 into the OPEB liability. So what does that mean? The premise for this exercise is that the 2 capital funds have interest-bearing bank accounts that the bond proceeds were deposited into. Over the years, these 2 bank accounts accumulated interest. As of November 30th, the bank account for the 2009 series capital fund contained interest of $56,245.02, and the bank account for the 2016 and 17 capital fund contained interest of $469,505.05. This interest totals $525,750.07. The mayor has directed that these funds be moved to a new bank account that will be open for the specific purpose of paying off the unfunded OPEB liability. As you know, this liability is in excess of $300 million, which must be addressed for several reasons, the most immediate of which is the impact that this liability is having on our S&P credit rating. I've been assured by S&P that the mere presence of a plan to deal with this liability will have a positive impact on our rating. So with all of this said, now comes the reason why this banking transaction impacts our appropriations in this ordinance. So to help with this discussion, I'm going to share my screen.
Go ahead.
The last part was hard to follow. Wait till you see the next part. Here we go. And let me pop over to here. Okay. The first report is the 2016-17 capital budget report as of May 31st, 2018. Now I'm going to scroll down if I can manage this to the bottom. As you can see, the total budget at that point, May 31st, stood at $15,003,000, which was the budgeted total at the inception of this fund. The next report, June 30th, 2018, shows a budget increase of $42,435. So that brings us to a new total of $15,045,435 as the budget for this fund. The following report, August 31st, let me get down to the bottom, shows a further budget increase of $174,292.08 to a new total of $15,219,727.08, which is where it stands today. So on these 2 occasions in mid-2018, the budget for this capital fund was increased with no apparent authorization. I've spoken with Alexis Cicchetti and Courtney Richardson, as well as the mayor and CAO on this subject, and there appears to have been no ordinance or act of council that would enact these increases in appropriations. As it happens, there were expenditures in these 2 months that utilized these budget increases, but the only justification I can determine was the interest that had been accumulating. With the mayor's decision to move this accumulated interest into a new special purpose bank account, I took a fresh look at the capital budget series 2016 and 17. These next 2 documents, let me get those and make them big enough to read. All right. These next two documents are the official statements for the series of 2016 and the series of 2017 bond issues. You'll note that the proceeds to Upper Darby Township were $7,501,482.48. And moving down, $7,505,181.11 respectively. Accordingly, the original budget for this capital fund should have been the sum of these two amounts, or $15,006,663.59, as this was the total sum available for Upper Darby Township to spend, rather than the $15,003,000 that I just showed you on the May report. Thus, with this next report, I'm showing you the last page of this capital budget report for the 2016 and 17 bonds. Let me shrink this back down so you can see it. Regrettably, this comes along with a handwritten reconciliation to cash and bank for that fund. Apologies for the scrawl, but I feel a little better since I saw the mayor's map. So I'm not the only one who's drawing today. Adjusting this budget to the correct amount pursuant to actual bond proceeds, the current budget and the unencumbered balance columns are both reduced by $213,063.49. By doing this, the current budget will then be properly stated at $15,006,663.59. And the unencumbered balance will be reduced to $1,009,558.46, which is what it now should be. This change frees up all of the interest that accumulated in this fund, totaling $469,505.05. The next and final report in this is the last page of this past month's capital budget report for the Series 2009 bonds, along again with a handwritten reconciliation to cash and bank for that fund. As this budget had never been adjusted, the interest is much easier to see. With only $3,807.10 unencumbered and a cash balance of $60,052.12, the accumulated interest totals $56,245.02. And so the combined accumulated interest from both of these funds, the $469,005 and the $56,002, totals the $525,750.07, as I said at the outset, which amount will be used to establish this new special purpose bank account. So that's why you'll see in 3807 the $213,000 being transferred out of the capital budget for 2016-17 into what is truly not a department, and that is the OPEB liability. With that, I know that I've just presented a lot of numbers, and so I'll be glad to take your questions.
Great, thank you. And that actually starts the solving of some problems we've had, so that's awesome. Any council members have any questions or concerns on this? I can't see you, so speak up.
I do. Council President Wentz, Tom Bonnet.
Go ahead.
Can we get a copy of these documents, please?
Were they not already distributed to you? I'm sorry.
We did get an email just before the council meeting, so check your email. There were 4 documents a part of it.
Is it exactly what I'm looking at here?
It is exactly what you're looking at.
Thank you.
And what
Thank
I
you.
just presented on the last.
All right, so we should have that. Thank you.
You're
Yep.
welcome.
Any other questions from other council members? Okay, I'm hearing none. Thank you very much, Gary, for your hard work and all this information. If we can get an official first reading on ordinance number 3087.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So this is ordinance 3087. This is ordinance Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, authorizing that part of certain unencumbered appropriations by the 2020 operating budget, the capital budget series 2009, and the capital budget series 2018 and 19 be transferred from various departments and agencies to other departments and agencies within the township, and repealing all ordinance and resolutions inconsistent herewith. Whereas there is a certain unencumbered appropriation allocated by the capital budget series 2009, whereas there also exists a certain unencumbered appropriation allocated by the capital budget series 2016 and 2017, whereas there also exists a certain unencumbered appropriation allocated by the 2020 operating budget, whereas pursuant to section 909D1 of the Home Rule Charter of Upper Darby Township, the mayor has requested that parts of that certain unencumbered appropriations be transferred from various departments, offices, and agencies to other departments, offices, and agencies within the township. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Upper Darby Township Council as follows. Section 1, portion of the unencumbered appropriation allocated by the capital budget series 2009 shall be transferred from various departments, offices, agencies to other departments, offices, and agencies within the township as follows. There's money going from the fire department to the administrative services for a total of $1,707.41. Section 2, a certain portion of the unencumbered appropriation allocated by the capital budget series 2016-2017 to other departments should be transferred from various departments, offices, agencies to other departments, offices, and agencies within the township. A portion of these funds will be sequestered for the specific purpose of reducing the unfunded other post-employment benefit OPEB liability as follows. Funds are being moved from council, administrative services, and public works, totaling $216,613.49 to fire and the OPEB liability, totaling $216,613.49. And finally, section 3, a certain portion of the unencumbered appropriation allocated by the 2020 operating budget shall be transferred from various departments, offices, and agencies to other departments, offices, and agencies within the township. From sewer, $988,500 is being transferred to the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, Fire and Public Works, totaling the same amount. There is a repealer clause, and it's enacted and ordained as of next week, December 16th, 2020. So ends the reading.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that we did, at our last meeting, we did a motion to approve both these ordinances, motion to advertise both these ordinances, which was basically the equivalence of the introduction, even though it officially in writing. So do we have to do it again since we now have officially in writing? Okay. All right, just wanted to clarify. That's the reason why I hadn't originally, because we had already done the motion to advertise in the previous meeting. All right.
You're muted.
Laura, we lost you.
You're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
There you go.
Am I unmuted? No.
You're
No.
unmuted.
Can you hear me? I didn't touch it. I didn't do it. It did it on its own. All right. So I want to do them separately for bookkeeping purposes. So can we get a motion to introduce ordinance 3086? Can I get a motion in a second?
Yes. I made a
Lynn?
motion to introduce it.
And I need a second.
I'll second that.
Silva, okay. Any questions or concerns on the introduction of 3086? Councilman Barnett?
Thank you, President Wentz. I looked at my email. You mentioned that I should have received, as other council members should have received, copies of the documents that Mr. Marin was addressing. Are they the documents that were sent out by Allison at 5:03 p.m.? by chance?
Or Alexis had sent stuff out at the end. We'll just verify that everyone gets the documents. We're actually in the middle of introducing the ordinances.
No, I get that. That's why I'm commenting on it. And I have to say that anything I received does not have any of the annotations that I saw in the presentation, but if we could follow up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, great. We'll just clarify that we need all the documents that Mr. Marin shared with us this evening. Okay, great. Thank you. So any other questions or concerns on the introduction of 3086? Okay, seeing none, can we get a roll call vote for 3086, Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Councilwoman Faralia is excused.
Okay. Councilman
This is the
Tunis?
introductory reading?
Yeah.
We did them. We already did the introduction reading.
Yes.
Well, this is another introduction. We don't need to have roll call unless some council member wishes to have one.
Okay. We're doing a roll call. Please give us a roll call vote on this. Okay? I've asked for it. Let's roll with it. Go, Ms. Phillips.
Councilman Tunis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Billups is a yes. Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Councilwoman Blackwell?
Yes.
Councilman Quinn?
Yes.
Councilman Burke?
Yes.
Councilman Sadiq?
Yes.
And Lisa is, Councilwoman Faralia is excused. Councilman Barnett?
No.
No?
He said no. Yes, he said no.
Okay.
Councilman Wagner?
No.
And Council President Wentz?
Yes.
So 2 noes, 1 excused, and
One
everyone else is yes.
Okay, great. So the introduction passes. Can we get a motion to introduce 3087? Can we get a motion and a second? I need to hear your voices.
I have a
I'll make a
question.
motion.
Seconded.
Silva and Sadiq.
I'd like to get a question.
Yes, please go ahead, Councilman Quinn.
Yeah, I have a question too, Councilwoman.
Yep.
Can we get some breakdown as to where, not just the departments, but what the purpose is in putting some of the 988,500? Is there a target, if you will, equivalent to like a fire truck or trucks or another trash truck, or what is it, the intended purpose of them, other than to house it in a particular area? Because when we do an initial presentation of these things, we have identified what the purpose is of it, and there is a capital life, et cetera.
All right, my, forgive me for perhaps not understanding what the protocol here should have been. The precedent that I'm following, my predecessor had been freely moving the budget around between individual line items within a section. So within the Department of Fire or Public Works, were there requirement, an overdraft against a budgeted line item at that level of detail, it was not necessarily discussed. He was just doing it on a monthly basis, so that only if the total needed to be moved between sewer and public works, for instance, would it find its way into a document that was presented, an ordinance to you folks. What this represents is the aggregate of many months of activity, not one particular purchase. There isn't a fire truck that we're about to go out and get. There are numerous things that have happened over the last several months that I am now attempting in this ordinance to true up for the year end. So I can take a look at the detail and see what the larger cost components were in, say, Public Works for that 311.5, or the fire department, that 582,000. Again, this is in operations, it's not in capital. So this is not going to be a fire truck. But I'm happy to do that, and I can report back with that, where I can send it off during the week and we can discuss it next week.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, CAO, did you wanna, you were nodding. I wasn't sure if you wanted to add to that.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. With what Gary was saying about the aggregated numbers and not any one identifiable purchase or expense to explain it.
Okay, great. And then was there another council member that had a question? I thought I saw one, but I didn't write it down.
Yes,
Councilman Billups?
yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
so go ahead.
So, Gary, this is, I just want to make sure that I was following you. This is actually interest money.
So to the extent we had these two bond issues, 2016 and 17,
Right.
which in the aggregate produced a little over $15 million for us. That 15 million, wasn't put in a checking account. It was invested with Pliget. And so it threw off a fairly significant interest rate, which, for the first few years, was on a substantial sum of money. And so this has been accumulating for years. Now, in the case of the 2009 fund, it only added up to about 56,000 in interest, and there was never any adjustment to the original budget. And so that was fairly straightforward. In the 2016-17 fund, there was 400 and some odd $1,000 worth of interest. And a couple of years ago, apparently the knowledge that that money was there was used to increase the budget in a couple of successive months by approximately $200,000. And so the result of all that is that we've introduced in this ordinance, removing that $200,000 that was added into the budget in 2016 and 17, so that all of that accumulated interest can now be set aside for this specific purpose. It's not, at least to my understanding, an appropriation. The interest accumulated, it was never contemplated, and it was never shown in operations. It was sequestered in the capital funds. And so this is, for all intents and purposes, found money.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And also, I just want to clarify with council, before we went into the motion to introduce, these questions that you're asking are the questions you should have asked earlier after he given his presentation. And I asked you if you had any questions. That was the appropriate time to do that, because these are really questions in reference to his presentation that we would have gotten in the committee before going forward to introduce. Okay, just want to clarify space relationship. The motion to introduce is normally in a motion to advertise, but we've already advertised this. So just wanted
We didn't
to,
have any of the
Excuse me, Council
information.
President Wentz, but we did not have this information.
I know, that's why we had a section before introducing it to have that discussion.
I hear you, but we did not
can-
have this information. Thank you.
We did tonight.
Yeah.
We had 2 windows. I'm getting told I don't have to do a roll call vote. I'm being told I don't, this and that. We just so happened to revamp things so that we were did a formal introduction. When we
Okay,
have,
Council President. Okay. Okay.
go
thank
for
you.
it. Ask
Thank
all
you.
your questions.
Thank you.
Rock it out. All right. Any other questions since we got confused? All right. Awesome. Can we get a roll call in the introduction of 3087? Ms. Billups, take it away.
Sure. Let me get my list out. Okay. Councilman Tunis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Billups is a yes. Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Councilwoman Blackwell,
Yes.
Councilman Gwen,
Yes.
Councilman Burke,
Yes.
Councilman Siddiq,
Yes.
Councilwoman Faraya is excused. Councilman Barnett,
No.
Councilman Wagner,
No.
and Council President Wentz.
Yes.
So there's 2 noes, one excused, and everyone else is yes.
Great. Introduction passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. And Gary, thank you for your presentation. We're looking forward to get that documentation in the future. You rock. Awesome. So next up, we have a report of our solicitors.
Thank you very much, Council President Wentz. As council is very well aware, our office has been very busy working with Drexeline, Ms. Richardson working extensively with Mr. Marin on the budgets, the various other ordinances we worked on and related to the Catania matters. This is not stop our office, especially Ms. Richardson, from continually dealing with right to know requests. Our office is also frequently in district court on code and various other issues. That concludes our my solicitor's report, subject to any questions from council.
Great. Any questions from council for our solicitors? Okay, seeing,
I believe
Councilman
it, Councilor
Gwynn,
Gwynn.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wondered what was happening with St. Eugene's.
A very good question. So the mayor actually asked us that question at the beginning of this week. So we're still waiting for the appraisal back from Coyle. We asked them, based on a new configuration of St. Eugene's, being that what we're attempting to purchase changed, we had to go back and have the Coyle reevaluate the property and give us a number, but ultimately we're either going to agree to that number or something close to it with St. Eugene's. So we're still waiting that. Coyle, that being said, told Ms. Richardson when she reached out to them, they were very busy at this time and we're working on another major project and asked for our indulgence. So that's where we're at with St. Eugene's, all moving forward. And essentially the same is going on. There's also a simultaneous title search going on, and they're just waiting for records back from Delaware County. But it's moving forward, and the mayor actually followed up with that in the beginning of this week.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, old business. Anyone have any old business?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, President Wentz. A few meetings back, I think it was probably 3 meetings ago, that I had made a recommendation that we change the public forum to allow live comment, much the same as is done by our zoning hearing board. It was said that it would be taken under advisement and considered. Could I get an update on that?
Well, at this point in time, I'm not exactly sure how we can do it since we don't have our agendas out prior to the Tuesday before the meeting. So I'm not sure if the agenda and the ordinances are not getting onto the website until the Tuesday before the meeting, as per the home rule charter. I haven't had a chance to talk to Ms. Dobbins or CAO about the logistics of being able to get live calls, because the way the zoning board does it, they put out their agenda weeks in advance, and then people have to register by the Tuesday before the meeting to get access the information and so forth, to have access to the meeting. So 2 days before our meeting is Monday, which is prior to our agenda and resolutions and ordinances making it to the website. I don't think there's enough time to get proper timing with all of that. But I'm sorry, I did not get a chance to look into that. I will try to do that in the next week.
I would appreciate it, because I think there is definitely a way to do it. I don't think it necessarily has to be tied to the agenda, where people could register and decide at the last minute whether they in fact want to participate once they do see the agenda. So I think there's a way. I would appreciate if that could be seriously considered. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Councilman Silva, can you give us an update on the job fair? So do you guys see your hand?
Yeah, I was just about to. Yes. This Saturday at 2:00 will be our virtual job fair. Anyone who is still interested in signing up for that, please email to UD Council Events Committee. So UD COUNCIL EVENTSCOMMITTEE@gmail.com. There's also a listing of it on the Upper Darby Township Council Facebook page. We've gotten I believe it's up to about 10 employers that'll be present at the event. We have some other resources as well for job seekers. And I think it's coming along very well, and I look forward to Saturday. Councilwoman Blackwell and Phillips and Councilman Tunis and I've all been working very hard, and I think we're going to have a nice event. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for all the hard work you've been putting into it. You guys have been doing a great job. Councilman Tunis, did you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I just kind of wanted to echo what Councilman Silva said. I wanted to thank Councilman Silva as well as Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilwoman Billups for your leadership and seeing the need. I mean, currently there are a lot of people facing unemployment, especially in our township. People are trying to find different resources. I think this is the first time, or one of the first times, a local government is actually putting on a job fair. So we're taking charge and stepping in, and I hope that people can find this, residents can find this very helpful this weekend. And I hope that I count on my colleagues to spread the word as much as possible, because this is something that's pressing everyone all over the township.
Great, thank you.
And if I could too, I just want to offer a special thank you to Jess Branis, who is doing the technical end of all of this, and it's been doing it completely volunteer, and we've been driving her crazy with our requests, and she's been absolutely extremely helpful. And like I said, we look forward to a great event on Saturday.
Yes, she's been amazing. Great, awesome. Councilman Bennett, I see you. Is there anyone before Councilman Bennett? I did see Councilman Siddiq. Did you want to say something, Councilman Siddiq?
Yes. When I'm driving towards 69th Street toward Marshall Road, I don't have to worry about my axle will break, or maybe my car front part will be hit to the ground. I would like to thank our mayor to take a little initiative to fix that zigzag street on 69th Street, which is good. The residents are happy now, but we have to do more about there. So in future, we can work to fix that street completely. The bottom line, thank you so much, Mayor, to take the necessary action regarding what we talked last meeting.
Great. Anyone else before we get to Councilman Burnett, because he's already spoken? And seeing none, go for it, Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Madam President. I should have brought this up under Finance and Appropriations. I apologize. One quick question for Mr. Marin. What is the fund balance that we are carrying in the new budget?
Tuning back in. Actually, with all of being in the middle of the 2019 audit, if you truly mean fund balance and not bank balance, I really can't say right now. There are too many things that are in flux. As soon as the audit is completed and I have an adjusted fund balance for the beginning of 2020, I'll be able to respond to that question.
Isn't that a critical aspect of a annual budget, however?
Well,
isn't it a critical line item?
The fund balance is, consider it your starting point. It's the very top line. You come into the year with a fund balance of X. As long as your revenues exceed your expenses in the current year, your ending fund balance will always be larger than X. That's what I'm focusing on. Since the beginning balance is unknown at this point, it's unknowable. I'm just ensuring that we run a positive year.
Yeah, but I would thought that we would have had to have that in order to have a legitimate annual budget for the coming year. We have to know what that number is. In the past, I know we would have our audit done at this point, but I gather from what you're saying is that we're in the process of doing that.
Yes, sir. I can't explain. What I understand is that COVID had a good deal to do with it, but typically the audit would have been performed over the summer. And I arrived the very end of August and it had not even begun. And so it was sometime in September into October before we finally pulled the trigger. And the audit firm was here working for a few weeks. They, as of last Friday, they're on COVID lockdown again. And so they're not here and they won't be back for a while. And so we're now trying to get across the finish line electronically, sending them the documentation they need. They're doing the work from their homes. Regrettably, this is going to drag on for another several weeks potentially.
Yeah. May I ask who's doing the audit?
The firm name is Maley LLC.
Can you spell that, please?
Maillie.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other old business? Okay, seeing none. Councilman Gwynn, always on the end. Go for it.
I was wondering, when we do get to the end of this, or near the end of this year, if it'd be available in giving us the OPEB balances that we've incurred, because many times those have been in the past merged in terms of the current activity of the health insurance and things like that of the individuals in the different departments.
I am aware that that Maley has every intention of disclosing the OPEB liability as a separate line item in their audited financials.
Great.
Okay, I meant what we are actually paying out this year as we do a pay-as-you-go portion.
Oh, the minimum municipal obligation.
Not the retirement.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mayor.
To that, I think Gary might have the GASB 75 report for 2019, so we could look at that. And
yes,
as has not been done in the past, but what we want to do in the future is have a line item for healthcare costs for active employees and another line for retired employees, so that we can start, for the first time, tracking what they are and just getting a good idea of what those costs are. And then Gary is totally on board with doing that and changing our the line item budget to reflect the two costs. They are separate.
I have requested in the past 2018 and 2019, and I have what information I was given for those 2 years. If that would assist Gary.
I would, if you can share it with me, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Sure.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you, Gary, on me and Mayor, on making sure that those two line items are separated. That has been a big debate for those of us on council for the last couple of years. So that's something that's really great to see moving forward. Okay, great. So next up, we have new business. Anyone have any new business? All right, I'm seeing none. Next up, we have motion to adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Councilman
I'd like to make a
Goodman,
motion to adjourn.
second Blackwell. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 28.
Those say your name. Abstains. Thank you. Ayes have it. Thank you all for a great night.